Well, it's official. Jacinda Ardern has hung up her boots, leaving New Zealand's parliament for the last time after resigning as Prime Minister. A teary Ardern waved to a cheering crowd as she left the building. She hugged and spoke to a number of supporters, thanking people before giving a final wave and climbing into a car. Ardern's successor, Chris Hipkins, has now been sworn in as the country's 41st leader, and he has a tough few months ahead. It's just 9 months until New Zealand's general election, with opinion polls suggesting his Labor Party is trailing behind the opposition. So can he save this sinking ship? I'm William Howard, and for more, it's a pleasure to welcome in political analyst Jeffrey Miller. Jeffrey, thanks for your time today.
Thank you. It's good to be with you, William.
What do you make of Ardern's departure? Was it truly her decision, or did the party force her out?
Oh, look, there are a range of factors, really. I mean, she came out last week and said she was burned out and had no energy left in the tank. And I'm sure that's true. I mean, 5.5 years in the job would do that too. And she certainly faced her share of crises along the way. But also her Labor Party really had sunk in the polls, particularly over the last year or so. They won the election back in October 2020 with 50% of the vote. And Labor is now polling in the low 30s. And it's clear over the last year that Jacinda Ardern has become part of the problem. I think she went from being a net asset to a net liability in the end. And there's just been increasing polarisation in New Zealand, as there has been in many other countries around the world, post-COVID, during COVID. And increasingly that polarisation became apparent. And there's been a lot of infighting over domestic issues, you would say, in New Zealand. Issues that don't really make international headlines, related, though, to these issues that everyone is facing now in the world: inflation, cost of living, but also in New Zealand, issues relating to the role for governance by the Indigenous Maori population. That was increasingly becoming a point of tension. So for all these reasons, I think Jacinda Ardern decided it was time to go.
So looking at New Zealand post-COVID now, has it rebounded? What's tourism like? Is New Zealand back?
Oh, to a certain extent, yes. Foreign tourists are back in New Zealand. Our borders are fully open. COVID is but a memory in many ways now, but that means it's no longer an issue. And that was one of Jacinda Ardern's strengths, was crisis management. And in handling the whole COVID situation, she did that very well, just like she handled the Christchurch mosque attacks back in 2019. She built her reputation on crisis management. Well, we do have a crisis now, and it's really the cost of living and high inflation. We've got 7.2% annual inflation to the year ended December 2022. Those figures came out today. And Jacinda Ardern's government really didn't have an answer for these problems. They were unwilling to really be radical under Jacinda Ardern's leadership. And increasingly, I think voters were becoming frustrated that the government seemed to be more preoccupied with reforms of government departments and these kinds of things, which I think voters increasingly judged were more distractions to what the government should be focusing on at the moment, which is economic issues. And that's what the new Prime Minister, Chris Hipkins, really has emphasised in his first remarks on the job, in that he will focus on bread and butter issues, what he calls bread and butter issues, economics. In other words, and with 9 months to the election, you can certainly understand that desire.
So a little bit more radical then?
Yes, I think he will try and be more focused and try and jettison some of these reform programs that the government was planning, and focusing back on economics, cost of living. I mean, that's the number one issue in New Zealand: housing, cost of groceries, all of these things. And he's going to have to come up with some solutions pretty quickly, because with 9 months to go, there's really not a lot of time left.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not much time at all, especially during an election campaign. Does he have the ability to lead Labor to victory, do you think?
I think it's more likely with Chris Hipkins than it was with Jacinda Ardern. He's still got his work cut out for him. He's facing Christopher Luxon, who's the leader of the main centre-right party here, the National Party. And Luxon really has been riding high on the polls, not for really anything he's been he's been advocating for, but just simply not being the Labour Party. And he's been able to show that that National is more focused on these bread and butter issues, as Chris Hipkins calls them, the economics. So Chris Hipkins is going to have to really get stuck in if he wants to win this election.
Wow, fascinating conversation, Jeffrey. Thank you so much for your time. Unfortunately, we do have to leave it there, but we'd love to chat again. Thank you.
Thanks very much, William.
And I'm William Howard. More Ticker News coming right up.
You're watching Ticker News. More news is just minutes away.